Hello. I really want to talk about the ketogenic diet and women because we get so many questions about the ketogenic diet being safe or dangerous for women. Sometimes women are completely advised not to do it, and other times they're advised to do it. So I can talk about my own experience having done strict keto and now cycling more of a low carb to moderate carb diet depending on my cycle. And I'll explain how women can use the ketogenic diet in a cyclical way to optimize their hormones through your menstrual cycle. You know that there's a lot of fad diets always coming out, and it's very difficult to figure out what is good for you, what is bad for you, when some things are held up as superfoods, and a few months, years later, they're suddenly demonized. And I always say the key thing is to experiment on yourself to see what works and look under your ancestry. But the key things that I want to cover in this talk are the keto diet in women, how women can use a cyclical approach to the ketogenic diet to optimize their hormones through the menstrual cycle, what ketosis is, whether we should do long-term or short-term keto, why we evolved to be able to burn both ketones and glucose for energy, and to top it off, how you can use carbs and certain supplements and foods to optimize your hormones through each of the 4 menstrual phases. So really, really hope this is useful. So I'll start off with, I'm Sara Aguilar, a health anthropologist, sports nutritionist, supplement advisor, and founder of Keto Supplements, also distributed for Real Ketones. So there is the bias there. I do run ketogenic websites and sell ketogenic supplements. That does not mean that I think all people should be taking supplements at all times at all. I think we should get our nutrients mainly from food and use supplements to give us an edge or a booster when we need them. But I've got a lot of experience of my own taking supplements, doing keto, and working with women who also do that too. So, firstly, let's look at what ketosis is. Well, a lot of you will know, if you've watched any of my other videos, that ketosis is when you burn ketones for energy, ketones from fat, and it's either from nutritional fat that we've eaten or when we burn our body fat stores, we're literally metabolizing fat cells for energy. And a really good point to note on this is that human babies are born with rolls and rolls of fat. Why is that? And they're the only mammals that do. All other mammals are born skinny, really low body fat percentage. Why is that? So that they can go into ketosis and use their fat stores for energy if there's a shortage of food or the mother can't produce breast milk. So we're born in ketosis, and breast milk is also high in MCTs. So ketosis isn't dangerous, it's very natural, just as using glucose for energy is also natural. So the benefits of both, but it's that ketosis is when you follow a high fat diet, so 80% fat, 15% protein, 5% carbs, or if you've done a lot of intermittent fasting, a lot of endurance exercise, and you use up all your glycogen stores, or if you're doing long-term fasting. And there are many reasons people use ketosis, whether it's to optimize their brain health. It's very good for cognitive focus. The brain prefers ketones by up to 25%. So when you have the example of ketones and glucose available for your brain, the brain will use the ketones first, and they're a clean burning fuel. And they're also brilliant for stabilizing blood sugar levels too. So they really provide your brain cells with a stable form of energy. Again, why the keto diet is used for epilepsy. Anxiety can support and alleviate ADHD and Alzheimer's as well. And when we're looking at women's hormones, the ketogenic diet can be used to alleviate PCOS too and reduce a lot of inflammation in the body. But why did we evolve to be able to use ketones as well as glucose? If you think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they would have hunted, had a big feast, and then they wouldn't have had food for a while. So 24 hours, 48 hours of no food. Now, if you're running on carbohydrates, sugar, and glucose, you have a meal, your glucose levels spike, and then your insulin level spikes to drop down the blood sugar levels, because high levels of sugar in the blood are very, very toxic. And then you get hangry and hungry and you can't concentrate and your energy levels really dip. And your brain is also starved of energy. Whereas in ketosis, when you've run out of those glycogen stores, so there's no more glucose left in the system, we then start metabolizing our own body fat for energy into ketones that fuel the body and brain. And this makes us sharper. It heightens our sight, our hearing, our sense of smell, and gives us increased energy levels and focus. Now, why would that happen during a shortage of food? Because it makes us better hunters. And that was very, very useful for survival hundreds, thousands of years ago. Not something that we need so much now, but it's still good to be able to dip into that level of focus and cognitive function and performance-wise as well, occasionally. So, there are amazing benefits of ketosis. But what happens if you are a woman and you do keto for too long? Well, it sounds great short term and you do really benefit, but then you are replicating, it's a fasting mimicking diet. And that tells our hormones that there's a shortage of food. And that's when things start to go wrong, because we can release excess cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which you don't want to get into the sympathetic nervous system, because then your body's in stress mode, which doesn't tend to happen so much with men for some reason on a keto diet, but it does with women, because we need to know that there'll be a constant supply of food if we want to get pregnant and have a baby, because there's no good getting pregnant when there's a famine. So being on a long-term strict ketogenic diet can tell your body that there's a shortage of food. It tells our hormones to shut down, and it can be difficult to get pregnant. But what would happen is your periods might stop or become really irregular. And that's what happened to me when I did keto like strict keto for a year. That really shot my adrenals and cortisol levels up. Even though I had all the amazing focus and energy from being in ketosis, long term, so strict wasn't ideal. And we've evolved to be able to go into ketosis in times of stress. That doesn't mean it's good long term, but it's definitely worth dipping in and out of ketosis to get the benefits without causing the stress of doing it long term. So why should a woman do keto? Is there any way that it can work for women? I think absolutely yes. But you've got to look at a couple of things. And when you are considering a diet, think about your ancestry and where you live seasonally, your genetics, biology, and your lifestyle. These are really huge factors on the sort of diet you can follow long-term or short-term. So if you have ancestors from the Northern Hemisphere, then they probably didn't have access to carbohydrates and fruits for most of the year. Only towards the end of summer and autumn would they have access to apples and pears and berries. Berries aren't very high sugar. Most of the time they would be, so if you think of Nordic populations, would have had access to fatty fish and meats and low carb veg like cabbage and leafy greens. So if you have Northern Hemisphere ancestry, you probably do quite well on a low carb, higher fat, higher protein diet. If your ancestors are from the equator, where tropical fruits and starchy vegetables are in season all year round, you might be better suited to having a higher carb diet, because that's what you genetically you'll have inherited and evolved to adapt to. So it's very important to take that into consideration, and then also your lifestyle. How active are you as well? Because if you're an athlete, an intense endurance athlete, you probably do need the quick acting glucose and carbohydrates too for energy. If you're quite sedentary, then you don't really need carbs in general. So there's quite a few factors to take into account. But what's really magnificent with women specifically is when we look at our hormonal cycles in each phase in the cycle, we get dips and highs of progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. And we have different needs as well. For example, the follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, actually requires carbohydrates to be produced. So that's one of the reasons the ketogenic diet that's too restrictive in carbohydrates can prevent you from producing enough estrogen and FSH, which means you're not going to be releasing the follicles that you need during a cycle. So if you want to get pregnant or have normal periods, that could be an issue. And but I'm going to go through each of the phases and the sorts of things that we need to eat during that cycle. But the ketogenic diet can work for women, but I advise, and this is what I do, a more cyclical approach throughout the menstrual cycle and listening to your body. That's really, really important. So if we start with the menstrual phase, so what happens during the menstrual phase? Well, we're getting rid of the uterine lining and we're losing the blood and a lot of iron as well. So you'll need to supplement with iron as your energy levels drop, and you can get iron from red meat and leafy green vegetables. Obviously, the red meat has more iron than the leafy greens, but if you're vegan, you can still get them then, or you could supplement too. That would be advisable. I also recommend during that time of energy levels dropping and the cramps and the PMT that you might get, it'd be really a good idea to have turmeric, whether it's fresh turmeric or powder, or in some kind of collagen supplement as well. Why? Because it's so anti-inflammatory. So it'll really reduce quite a bit of the cramping. And if you get migraines as well, whether it's tummy cramps or migraines, turmeric will help with that. Just make sure you have it with black pepper, because you'll absorb it better if there's pepper in there. Otherwise, it can go straight through you. So you can make a smoothie. You can make a fat smoothie with blueberries and turmeric, black pepper, and coconut milk. And maybe if you want, throw in some honey, because during the menstrual phase, you actually want to have some more carbohydrates. And you'll know that when you're on your period and before your period, you actually crave carbs. We need them, and we burn 30% more calories in that time. So it's totally fine if you eat more, but you will feel lower energy. So do lighter exercise like yoga and walking. You then have the follicular stage. So that's when your estrogen increases and FSH as well. You can actually drop down in carbs because you've had the carbs ideally, which I'll explain, through the menstrual and previously the luteal cycle, the 2 weeks beforehand. So you would have enough stored glucose and glycogen to produce the estrogen that you need. During the follicular phase, your energy levels increase. You want to continue with lots of leafy green vegetables and protein as well, because you can build muscle well in that stage. Then you have the ovulation phase, and that's when you feel your best, the most confident, you sort of glow. Your libido is higher as well. Great for HIIT exercise and intense weightlifting. Generally feeling really good. It's the nicest part of your cycle. We don't actually need that many carbs then, and we don't tend to be as hungry as well. And our moods tend to stabilize off, or we just feel really, really good. So then you want to be eating more healthy fats. So I'm thinking, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil as well, fat from animal fats such as fish and meats too. That's a great idea. Keep your energy levels stable, and you can get into ketosis and do quite well during that phase in ketosis. And then you've got the luteal phase. Now this is when, after you've ovulated, if the egg isn't fertilized, the follicle bursts and then releases a lot of progesterone. And that's what makes you feel moody and low energy and fatigued and generally not very good. And it's the week before your period. So it's just, that's in general, when people get the most PMT and the most cravings. And that's when you listen to your body. And if you need to eat more carbohydrates, and I say starchy carbohydrates like sweet potato, butternut squash, even chocolate, as long as you avoid processed sugars, then, listen to your body. You're burning 30% more calories. That's absolutely fine. And you'll be set for a smoother ride through your menstrual cycle rather than trying to restrict. So dieting is a really bad idea during your luteal phase, because it's hard, because you're going to have a lot of cravings, but you'll be burning a lot more. So nothing to worry about there at all. Have extra vitamin C. Foods with vitamin C are blueberries, lots of fruits and vegetables. Fine to have those starchy carbs, and lift up your energy, your antioxidants, and your immune system as well, because you can feel lower. And that will kind of alleviate the dulling effect of progesterone. And then, of course, the cycle starts again. So in a nutshell, for your luteal and menstrual phase, so the week before your period and the week during your period, increase your carbohydrate intake. Eat but healthy carbohydrates if you can, such as the starchy veg. And if you're going to have chocolate, have like raw chocolate, which has loads of magnesium. So again, great for avoiding cramps. And the turmeric and the antioxidants, the berries, all the berries that you want to have. And then when you get to the follicular and ovulation phase, then I would suggest going lower carb, higher healthy fats and protein. And you can benefit from ketosis. And then you can replenish your glycogen stores and kind of regenerate those hormones for the other phase. So it's 50-50, 2 weeks low carb, 2 weeks high carb. And basically, when you feel like you need carbs, probably because you need carbs, and you've got to listen to your body. Men obviously don't have that cycle, so they could be probably fine doing intermittent fasting, strict keto for the whole period of the month, but they're different to us and they don't have the same cycle. So you don't want to be trying strict fasting the week before your period, because it will not be good and probably end up in binge eating or some kind of extreme replenishment of the energy that you need, because you're burning 30% more. So do keep that in mind as well. Now, let's see where we are here. So although I've kind of said lots of negative things in a way about doing the ketogenic diet long term, it's still really important to to consider the low carb diet is extremely beneficial for reducing inflammation in the body, because sugar at the levels that we eat it today in the Western world are extremely toxic. So I still believe that we should follow, and I do follow for my own health, a cyclical ketogenic diet. So I'm keto 2 weeks and not keto 2 weeks. And that works amazing for me. And I feel good, and I feel much better than when I did really strict keto, and much better than when I was paleo beforehand, which was actually quite high carb. I didn't realize it. So I recommend that you get the best of both worlds, benefit from being in ketosis without the kind of hormonal stresses that you cause by doing it long term, and then benefit from the glycogen replenishment and everything you need for your hormones for 2 weeks. There's another way also that you can incorporate keto, not just in a monthly cycle, but on a daily cycle. And I also like to do this mainly because if I have lots of work to do, I need to be able to function cognitively and focus. And that would be following something similar to Dave Asprey's Bulletproof, but without the bulletproof coffee, because if you want to lose weight, I don't believe that's a good idea for women. Men can get away with 400-calorie coffee. If you're a petite woman, you need to be getting more nutrients from the calories that you're having. So I would say have a really low carb breakfast. You're thinking fats for breakfast and protein. So eggs and avocado and some spinach or watercress. So that is ketogenic, but you've still got some greens in there and you're getting protein as well. Then for lunch, have a salad with some fatty fish, say mackerel or sardines, and then a nice salad with maybe some feta as well. That's still keto, but it's an alkaline keto because you're getting lots of greens. And I think that works really well for women. And then in the evening for dinner, that's when you incorporate some starchy carbs, like I love sweet potato. Loads of people do. You want to add some sweet potato, and the carbs also help you sleep. So that means your breakfast and lunch are really low carb or keto, and your dinner's moderate carb. So I'd be having maybe a piece of chicken or meat or fish with some sweet potato, and then some cavolo nero or spinach or cabbage, something like that. So overall, you're getting maybe 60, 70 grams of carbs a day, maybe only 50, but you'll be getting the carbs you need to sleep well and for your hormonal cycle, rather than restricting too much. If you are doing keto and you have trouble sleeping, add a little bit of honey in the evening or some dark chocolate or blueberries to relax the system so that your body doesn't think that you're starving. That's a really good tip. If you can't sleep on keto, you're probably need to eat some carbohydrates. So, but just a little bit, not low. It's just a tablespoon or so, definitely. The next thing that I want to talk about is that overall, whichever diet you do, there's no one diet for everyone, because everyone is completely different depending on their ancestry, their biology, their lifestyle, where they live in the world. You can only figure out the diet that will work for you by experimenting and seeing how you feel. So I encourage you to do a week dairy-free, do a week keto, do a week vegan, do a week high carb, do one low carb, do one where you cycle your keto in the morning and then you have carbs in the evening. Play with it and see how you feel, and then experiment at different times in your cycle. But the other best way is just to listen to your body. What is your body saying that you need to eat? And if you're not addicted to processed sugars, then you should be able to hear it. So that I recommend, to avoid artificial sweeteners if you can, because they can be quite addictive and have the same effect as sugar, and also just disrupt the gut microbiome. I'd say take out processed sugars, fizzy drinks, anything high fructose corn syrup, all the American stuff, don't have it. And really, I've got another video on this which I'll link to. Avoid vegetable oils. We think sugar is bad, but when we eat degraded fats, we actually build our body from those degraded fats, and they cause really bad inflammation and oxidation, and even the release of free radicals into the system. So watch the interview with Dr. Chris Kenobe that I've done, in which he explains how the effect of having a pack of fried chips is worse than smoking cigarettes in terms of what it's doing to oxidize your insides. So that's a checkout one. So if you can drop seed oils, that's great, unless they're cold pressed, because then they've been degraded, so don't cook with them. And I would say what the other thing that's really, really, really important, that I come across with so many people who are really on it with diet and very, very focused, is that we can become so obsessed with, what percentage of fat am I having? What percentage of protein, carbs? How much am I eating? How often am I eating? I'm eating in this time window, or am I, that sort of thing, and become very obsessed. And then you don't even enjoy the food you're eating. You're not chewing the food. We're supposed to chew 32 times, I think. If you can go for 20 each mouthful, that's good. Taste your food, enjoy it, avoid stress eating. Be very aware of that. That is almost more important than the kind of diet that you do, because the psychological effect has a physiological manifestation. So if you can think positive things, chill out, really taste and chew your food, it probably doesn't matter that much what you're eating. But if you do want to watch the food, then I recommend cyclical low carb diet according to your hormonal needs and the menstruation cycle, and avoiding processed sugars and processed oils, and you'll be golden, I think. So yeah, I really hope you found that helpful. I'm going to be doing a few more videos on specific topics within the ketogenic diet. So let me know what you'd like to see more of. Please do subscribe. You can find out more about me by subscribing to this YouTube channel, checking out ketosupplements.co.uk, or the Thrive with the Health Anthropologist podcast. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and see how I'm working with other brands as well, at the Health Anthropologist there. So leave me your questions, and I look forward to seeing you next time.